investments, looks like the budget was 950,000 and we're at 880,000 at this point. It looks like we're going to exceed that. Would that be a fair assumption?
Absolutely, as long as the interest rates stay where they are. They dropped a bit during this fiscal year, but we're still going very strong.
Right. So when I'm looking at things, it looks like about anywhere between, well, this month looks like we earned $68,008.66 in interest. So if we're continuing that for the next few months, we would see it succeeding then.
Yes, I anticipate it will be well over $1 million. It will be less in that we're spending as we turn past January. We're kind of spending all the money that we've collected, so our bank reserves will deplete as normally happens in this time of year.
Okay. 7140 general fund charter schools is new. Is there any information what's something that you can provide?
So that was an item that was passed in the state budget. If you remember, we passed our budget before the state passed theirs. So charter school reimbursement line item in the state. And as before, we had no budget for it because we didn't know it was going to exist. And we just received that money at the end of January. So that's why you're seeing it.
Okay, great. That was my next question. It's like, why is it just now? Okay. Capital projects list. It looks like the only thing expense-wise was $22,334.20 was paid last month to the architects.
That is correct.
Is that correct?
Not all that money was the architect. There was also some would have been some things in there for our move in the district office. So some of the storage containers, the bills to pay for the storage containers are included in that 22,000 number. That's correct.
And then two related questions regarding the choral expenses. On the fund accounting payment summary was $13,766.88 for the chorus room. Is that when the pipe burst and water damage, or was there something else that
No,
was?
that was and that was the cleanup for that. Yes.
I didn't know if that was a separate issue.
That is what it was.
Then in the account summary, there was also an additional transfer of $40,000 for the choral activity. What would that have been for?
So over the last year, we've been dealing with moving some things that when I inherited the books here at the school district, there were some things that we were dealing with as the general fund. Chorus would be one of those. What really should have been in the student activity fund. So that was moving all that money over, setting that up now in the student activity fund, and you'll see that money flow through there for the remainder.
And then one last question, I think more for me. Comment too. I notice every month, everything you put in here, it's just hard to imagine that you all get this much done. So I just want to thank you for that. And then you mentioned training. You were going to do a training. Could you elaborate on what kind of training you all do? Just wanted to elaborate on your comment in here mentioned training. Could you elaborate on what kind of training it is, and is it sufficient, do you think, or is it something that we should be thinking about to do differently for you for training, or just kind of comment on that a little bit for me?
Yes, for several years have been looking to, or hoping that on in-service days that we could bring our team together, studio maintenance, everything, training that they can use, whether it's fire systems, how to shut faucets off and custodians. We don't have the time to teach them. All summer long they are cleaning, so we don't have that time. Our goal was always that we had in-service days where the teachers are learning things. We could bring our people in, we could train our people. You might say things are a little above custodial, but still I expect we should be able to do that in an emergency. Shut toilets off, shut the sinks off, reset the boiler, stuff like that. And my former district, our people were trained to do it. We just don't have the time without trying to get the service. And it seems like every time we have service, have other activities there.
Is there any suggestion wise you have for us to help you make that happen?
One of the items we've discussed over this past year was addressing that. And it does become difficult because when we have our service with teachers, people make a mess. We still need someone there to service some of those things and the custodial stuff. We talked in service that will be coming up in October of next school year to making a commitment to telling people that our custodial staff will not be available during that time because they are also going to take training. Not the same training that the instructional staff, but as Heath noted, specific to them. So we are committed to trying to do that at least this first time to see how it goes from that standpoint and see if we can operate without that additional assistance because that's been the real item there is how do we kind of have to deal with not cleaning buildings, letting that stuff go so that we can go to the training. But to your point, I think it's a good commitment to make and something that we continue to work on the schedule.
Yes, so thank you very much. I just wanted to, from me personally, just thank you and also just support that endeavor to have more training that's specific to your staff so that you will then to do their jobs at the highest level possible. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Discussion under first report? Okay, the motion is to approve. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Off to the president's report. This is my third month now as president of the board, and I hadn't done a report yet. I did prepare one for today, and I apologize in advance because it's a little bit lengthy, but I'll do my best to get through it quickly. I'm going to start by saying that we're headed right now straight into the budget season. As a school board, is probably the most difficult time of the year for us. There will be many presentations given as we navigate the process in our attempt to approve a budget that's fair to our staff, our children, and the community. I strongly encourage everybody to participate in the budget process, attend the meetings, and email us or let your voices be heard. Again, it's a difficult time. It's going to be long, probably painful, but it's necessary, and I'm confident this board will do an excellent job getting through it. But I do beg for public participation. As a board member, it's my opinion that this board has made significant strides in many areas. I, in fact, had prepared a list of administrative and board accomplishments for the past 3 years since I've been elected. I'm not going to read every single bullet point, but I will make it available to anybody who wants it. I'll just hit some of, they're not even really highlights because I'm just going to pick them at random. But I think our first order of business as a new board during my term, I think there was 4 or 5 of us elected at that time, was dealing with the mask mandates and putting control back in the hands of parents on that one. That was probably our first big accomplishment. We fully funded the 7th grade outdoor education program following COVID-related cuts. We put curriculum maps on the district website so the public can view them. We approved updated special education plans, implemented IXL learning software. We're in the middle of dealing with the new science curriculum, maintaining the STEEL standards. We eliminated lab fees for parents. We eliminated pay to play, that's sports fees. Try to make sports more accessible and take some of the stress off the coaches and administration for having to collect it and administer that. We updated the district athletic and activity academic eligibility policy. Different teams had different standards, and the PIAA had a standard, and Palmyra kind of created their own. We tightened the belt on it a lot. And it seems to be working really well so far, as we're seeing
more students participate and not be bumped for academics. So I think there's some effort being put in on behalf of the kids. Right now, we're in the middle of working with an athletic committee that's tasked with making changes so we can better engage our student athletes. We've updated dozens of district policies, more than in the past 12 years, to bring them into alignment with current standards. Certainly, we still have a long way to go. If anybody's ever looked at board policies, I mean, there's books of them. And then we have administrative regulations we have to accelerate our work on. But make no mistake, it's being addressed. That's something that had been neglected for a while. We made significant security upgrades, including the addition of security cameras, window glazing, and a bunch of other improvements. We created and funded a capital projects fund. We're refurbishing Bucks Swank, the football field, and the track, so the track and field kids will have a brand new surface, new tennis courts. Had to fix a swimming pool that we had significant problems with, if everybody remembers that from a few years ago. We added English language teachers, 2 school police officers, 2 vehicles purchased with grant money, added a social worker, a school counselor, and a psychologist. And that's just a partial part of the list. I mean, it just goes on, but I'm happy to make that available to anybody who wants to see it afterwards. But despite some of the perception at times, I firmly believe in my heart that this board has done a pretty good job over the last several years accomplishing things and working with the administration to keep Palmyra School District amongst the top. And I'm very proud of that. I did say it was going to be long, right? There's no doubt in my mind that every administrator and every school board member here has nothing but the best interest of our children and our community at heart. In fact, I truly believe that we all share the absolute goal of being the best in everything that we do. I also believe that everyone's heart on this board and administration is pure. Nobody's here, at least in my opinion, for the wrong reasons. And I commend everybody that sits on this board and gives of themselves and their time. It's selfless. There's nothing in return. So to my fellow board members, I thank you. All those good things, however, doesn't mean that we have not had our fair share of difficulties. Things happen that nobody can control. This happens in our personal lives, within our homes, and at our workplace, and here at school. We simply cannot control, prepare for, or legislate for every possibility. That's an impossible task. What we can do, however, is learn from our mistakes and make reasonable changes. We do our best, and we will do our best to mitigate similar circumstances from happening in the future. I can assure you that is my intention. Finger pointing, judging, and blaming are unhealthy and will accomplish nothing. I fell victim to that. I felt the need to defend myself, and I'm not sure that I made the right choice. I am certain that it was not productive. And for that letter, I do apologize to the community, and I apologize to Jill. I let my emotions get the best of me, and I just felt the need to defend myself, and I did. And it probably wasn't the best choice, so I'm sorry. That said, I have solicited ideas and suggestions from those seated here with me. Moving forward, there are going to be some changes. Some may be recognizable and some will not. First, board members will shortly begin to receive an executive consolidated summary report from Dr. Kepler. I expect that to happen every 2 weeks, the Wednesday before the board meeting. It's not meant to be intrusive or account for anybody's time and activity, but rather to ensure that our board has a solid grasp on happenings within each building. Especially positive news. We hope to get this started very soon. This report will not preclude the administration from immediately advising this board of any emergencies or very important matters. As a board, we're also going to be putting more emphasis on educational outcomes. We tend to get mired down in budgets, contracts, and facilities and maintenance. Dr. Kepler and his staff have worked very hard to see that Palmyra is always a top performer. And make no mistake, as a district, we perform very well. This board simply wants to be more involved in that process. Moving forward, we'll see more academic reports and discussions at board meetings. Additionally, it's my hope that we as a board can take advantage of some training opportunities so that we are better prepared to provide for the best possible outcome for our students and provide for a positive culture and climate throughout the entire district. Lastly, I'd like to see that this board sets annual goals. These are not to be district goals, but rather board goals. What we as a board would like to accomplish by year's end. That will conclude my president's report, and I'm happy to provide this to anybody who wants to see it at the conclusion of today's meeting. Now we get on to the good stuff. Visitor comments, Mr. Clee. 5 minutes, sir. Yep. That microphone on?
On February the 13th, I asked the PASD Board for information related to the so-called secret library controversy of 2024. Thereafter, I received PASD policy number 122 about extracurricular activities and also some PASD documents associated with that policy's administrative regulations. After perusing that material, dangers associated with the opportunity of PASD complicity with LGBTQIA+ grooming came to mind. By the end of that week, I became aware of Elena Barbara and her association with a documentary titled American Groomer, The Kids Are Not All Right. This film is accessible at no cost by means of the website AmericanGroomerFilm.com. American Groomer, The Kids Are Not All Right is a documentary work that has added to my perception that here in America, the ideological left is focused on training up K-12 students to embrace a disdain for the United States of America. And with that disdain, help facilitate drowning our nation in a sea of ideological, moral, and sexual perversions. I now sense that as this year draws closer to the PASD Board Director elections of 2025, an important question is whether or not we, the people, should unquestionably acquiesce to the current PASD status quo, a status quo that could very well be running cover for a LGBTQIA+ pond of ideological, moral, and sexual perversions by means of a contrived construction, implementation, and then enforcement versus non-enforcement of PASD Policy 122 and PASD Policy Number 122 Administrative Regulations. Speaking of PASD Policy Number 122, has the PASD ever explicitly clarified for we the people the definition of one particular word used in that policy, the word exploitation? If so, where can that definition be found? If not, why not? Also, does the PASD elaborate anywhere on the definition of the word exploitation by providing one or more extracurricular activity examples of where such exploitation of PASD K-12 students could occur? I see what I am doing here today as a for your information type talk to not only the 9 of you, but also to all the third-party eyes and ears that may actually end up seeing or hearing what I am sharing today with you. On February the 27th, I asked about whether or not any of the 9 of you believe PASD parents can simultaneously love their children yet betray their children's generation. Related to all this does indeed PASD Policy Number 122 and the administrative regulations associated with that particular policy truly protect PASD K-12 students from ideological, moral, and sexual corruption? Or in reality, do those PASD documents predominantly run cover for a LGBTQIA+ pond of perversions within the district? What do you think? And for those of you who may watch this film, American Groomer, The Kids Are Not All Right, As you watch it, you may want to pay particular attention to comments by some individuals associated with the organization Gays Against Groomers. You may also want to pay particular attention to the definition of the word grooming that is noted in that documentary. In light of both that particular definition of grooming and existing PA obscenity exemption statutes, here in the Commonwealth, would or would not such grooming be legally classified as a form of exploitation when being directed toward a PA K-12 government school district student by means of one or more district extracurricular activities? Given the particulars here, what do you imagine the bulk of the voters of the PASD think about all this? In addition, what do the 9 of you think about all of this? To me, it appears as though some in command and control of the PASD have little to no interest in publicly shining a spotlight of truth on any PASD extracurricular activity related exploitation threat within the district. However, if I am wrong here, then prior to the upcoming PASD board director elections, would you all, as a board, be willing to publicly point out the specifics of where I am indeed wrong? Or is this final request too much to ask of this current board? Thank you for your time and attention. And finally, I'm going to leave some copies of what I shared with you all back on the table back there, if that's okay.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Clee is the only one signed up to speak. Is there anybody else that would like to? Now's the opportunity. Now's your chance. Going once? Going twice? Seeing nobody. If I find my place, we will move on. Curriculum.
Okay, the curriculum meeting met on February 27th. We had a presentation by Dr. Richardson and Mr. Popejoy with their presentation on high school and middle school volunteering adult program. We also have a motion tonight for Dr. Spagnuolo reviews of the following novels: the movie Lincoln, the novel French, and the Spanish one textbook. We had spotlight on learning also by Dr. Spagnuolo to the board with highlights from each division. We also had a review of a field trip to New York City on March 27th, where the senior members of the band will see The Great Gatsby on Broadway at no cost to the district. Also a motion for tonight. Dr. Spagnuolo also reviewed where senior members of the band will repeat myself. Okay, Seth Steinmetz asked a question on the novels. The meeting adjourned at 7:08 p.m. The next meeting is March 27th. And I have a motion here. A motion to approve the curriculum committee items as noted on the curriculum consent agenda. I can't vote.
I was in the same boat a few minutes ago.
My gosh.
We have a motion on the floor by Mrs. Gilligan to approve the curriculum committee items as noted on the curriculum consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
I didn't. Who was it? By Ms. Haldeman. Thank you. Any discussion on the matter? Dr. Kepler? Anything? Having no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We will move on to staffing and administration.
Staffing and administration met on February 27th, 2025. There was a presentation of public financial management on bond refinancing that will be voted on during the regular meeting tonight. There was a review of the land use assessment for the landing of a military helicopter at Palmyra High School for the lacrosse appreciation event on April 22nd, 2025. Dr. Keckler reviewed safety protocol for after-school events. There were public comments, one regarding the education, another one making a recommendation for security. There were also comments about school safety. And then there was an announcement of advanced executive session. So, how was that? Okay. We have a board elects and appoints Dr. Nathan Frank as Assistant Superintendent of the Palmyra Area School District for approximately 4 years and 1.5 term, beginning on May 14th, 2025 and ending on June 30th, 2029. Sent to the terms of the business and employment contract, the agreement, and in accordance with the school code. And further authorizes the board president and secretary to sign the agreement, and this will be a roll call vote.
So there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Guy, appointment of assistant superintendent. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Braden. Any discussion on the matter, please? Seeing none, all those in favor, or no, wait, roll call. Yes, thank you. Mr. Fritz?
Prater,
Yes.
Guy,
Yes.
Gilligan,
Yes.
Holman,
Yes.
Jones,
yes,
Koval,
Yes.
Laudermill,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Very well, congratulations, Dr. Frank, thank you.
Mr. Koval, may I give Mr. Frank an opportunity to introduce himself to those present tonight?
That would be very good, thank you.
Honored guests that are with him tonight. Allow me, it's an honor to introduce to you Dr. Nathan Frank, joining us here in mid-May. We're going to celebrate the lady to my left in June when Dr. Annette Spagnuolo enters the world of retirement. So I won't say too much tonight. We'll talk about that in a few months. But tonight, Dr. Frank, welcome to Palmyra. We're thrilled to have you. You have big shoes to fill, but I know you're up for the task. So please introduce yourself to those present tonight and share who your special guests are.
Thank you, Dr. Kepler. You and your team have been absolutely wonderful throughout this whole process. It's been great for me, so many wonderful admin. Thank you to the board for this opportunity. I'm very excited to join the Palmyra School District. Speaking of family, I brought my wife this evening, Emily Frank. She's on Palmyra in the area, so I'm very happy. Yes. And my son Joshua is actually home for spring break at Boston University. So I brought him to come tonight with ice cream after birthday. Like almost 19 and happy to go get us. And his girlfriend Alex was here. My sophomore daughter was 3 for 3 last I heard in her softball game. She plays JV softball. And my youngest is 8th grader and she's in the middle school musical. So they're doing Newsies at school. So thank you again so much. I'm very excited to start.
Thanks all the time.
Now you know ice cream still works.
Okay. We have another motion here. Board of School Directors of the Palmyra Area School District hereby authorize the administration to work with PFM Financial Advisors, LLC, as financial advisor Raymond James as underwriter, as bond counsel, to proceed with insurance of the general obligation bond series 2025 as structured in scenario 1 of the February 27th, 2025 presentation.
Mr. Guy put a motion on the floor. The Board of School Directors of the Palmyra Area School District to authorize the administration to work with PFM Financial Advisors LLC as financial advisor, Raymond James as underwriter, and Saxton and Stump as bond counsel to proceed with the issuance of general obligation bonds series 2025 as structured in scenario 1 of the 27th February 2025 presentation. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Laudermilk. Conversation or discussion on the matter, please.
I
Mrs. Martin.
So this past week, as I was trying to think through this vote, I did email Mr. Friends, and he was kind enough to send me some additional information, which was helpful. Summary of outstanding debt. That was a document put together by PFM. So just looking through that, trying to understand the ramifications of this decision and making sure that I was fully informed before I voted on this. Trying to figure out what the underlying purpose for sure was. So when I did email you, you did send back some additional information for me. So I was just going to kind of share that so that the rest of the board understood what you had sent to me. So you said in the email that there would be no new net savings since we are pushing out the debt payments for 3 more years. And if I say anything incorrectly, please correct me. Current borrowing capacity, we are at $135,826,207. And our total outstanding debt in June of 2025 should be $56,745,000. So that leaves us with approximately $79 million in borrowing capacity. So that number, so we're in this presentation, we're looking at borrowing up to 100 million. So for me, then there's the question of where we get the additional 21 million in borrowing capacity. We definitely don't want to be borrowing, I would think, to our capacity, to our cap. I mean, I don't see that that's would be a recommendation that we should make. So that number that you said in the email, the borrowing capacity is 79 million, would continue to grow as our budget number grows over the next few years. So my understanding of calculating the borrowing capacity, and here, correct me if I'm misunderstanding this, our borrowing capacity is determined by an average of our last 3 budgets, and then there's a multiplier. And then I think it's at 2.25 is our multiplier currently. So then that's how that number is determined. So as our budget increases and our debt goes down, then that number 79 million could go up. Is that some understanding all this correctly? Okay. So you're said then in the email that the refinancing really had no effect though right now on the borrowing capacity because we weren't borrowing any new money. Okay. So then what is the point of doing the refinancing? So if there's no new net savings and we're not really expanding our borrowing capacity by doing this, then what is the real point of that? And then how are we going to get to 100 million if we're currently at 79? So I'm guessing then that would necessitate tax increases in order to get that increased revenue. And increase in the debt amount, as we're paying that down, obviously. So I guess I'm just kind of concerned, how are we getting from 79 million to 100 million without significant tax increases in order to come up with that formula? Does that all make sense? Okay, thank you.
First, I'll address the bar. I guess first of all, the process that we've gone through, the borrowing of the 100 million as we're looking at now, we've reviewed thoroughly. I believe that there will be tax increases necessitated by borrowing that amount of money, and the board has already increased taxes in the current year 2.3% to account for $20 million that we borrow in July of 2024. So to go to the borrowing capacity, I'll break this down. So the $100 million that we've been looking at includes the $20 million we've already borrowed. So that leaves $80 million. So if our borrowing capacity now is around 79, we'll continue to grow. Our plan would be that we've been working through at this point. That all can change, but currently what we've been working through would be in 2026. We would issue another $20 million. So we obviously have the borrowing capacity to do that. Combination as these years pass, we're also paying off our current debt, so that will lower the borrowing capacity. And Ms. Martin, as you noted, as our revenue increases, certain revenues, or as our revenue increases, our borrowing capacity also goes up. So in the note that we only need of that $100 million, we already have 20 of, so 80 million. So hopefully you can understand that process, that if we're at 79 now, as debt goes down, it's mathematical that we will be able to borrow that amount of money from that standpoint. As you noted, the refinancing that we're proposing does not equate to any savings. It is moving some debt around to reduce the tax burden that we are proposing is needed for that additional debt. So if we do nothing, we are going to raise real estate taxes higher than if we would go through this refinancing. So the purpose of the refinancing is to get the real estate tax increases as low as we possibly can.
Thank you. Thank you. And then, obviously part of the reason I asked some of these questions is just so the rest of the board can hear these answers and the public as well. So I appreciate you taking the time to kind of walk through that. For people up here, and I'm assuming most of the audience are not very well versed in municipal bonds and the way these all are financed. So for myself personally, I appreciate the extra information. I believe that was all. So if I'm understanding that correctly, the sole purpose of doing this refinancing is not for net savings, not to increase our borrowing capacity, but to reduce the tax burden over the next 3 years. Because that's how far out we're extending the debt, correct?
The tax structure that we've noted would actually be over the next 4 years. And with the refinancing, it's projected that we would have a tax increase of about 1 3/4%. If we do not do the refinancing, that same projection over the same 4 years is raising taxes 2.5% each year over those 4 years to do that. Now I say raising taxes, and one of the things we're aiming for in the 25-26 budget is to raising taxes is the only way we can guarantee our revenue to increase. We can try to count on the state, try to count on the federal government, but as we learned, hopefully board members have learned in a short time here, waiting for the state to come through is not really a good option. They're going to make us wait, and we really can't plan the way we need to plan if we're not able to grow the revenues the way that we need to. So we talk tax increases because that's the one thing that's definite. What we are looking to next year is because of the increased state revenue that we received from the state this year. Once again, after our budget was done, money we didn't know about until July. We're looking to try to not raise taxes next year, but still use that revenue increase to offset. It really is our revenue needs to increase to add the additional debt that we have. We talk real estate taxes for that increase because that's the only thing we can control. If the state comes in with additional money again, if the federal government comes in with additional money again, that would help us offset any of those increases. So once again, we talk about it in real estate taxes, but as we're looking at 25-26, we're looking at raising them 0, but still accounting for that additional need for revenue. Fortunately, those sources, in our case, came from the state this past year.
Mr. Prince, are there any websites or anything that you could recommend for the community and the board to educate ourselves and be more informed when it comes to the bonds?
Honestly, I believe we're the best source for that. We bring in TFM to try to go through those items, as well as myself as a resource to try to help board members. So I would encourage board members to reach out if they have additional questions. When we have presentations, I know that's tough to wrap your head around everything and then provide questions about that. So that can be difficult. But even if you come up with them later, I would like to be part of helping you understand what those are, getting that information to you. So no, I don't have any recommendations for other places for that information.
And then lastly, when you say it's going to guarantee, if we don't do anything, it's going to guarantee tax increases for the next 4 years. But that's only if we decide to follow this plan for increased debt, correct?
I guess I'm coming at that, Ms. Martin, from the standpoint of the age of our buildings, specifically the high school on Pine Street. We have to do something for them. We've been given estimates on the lower level of what that will take to do that, and we're planning based on that. So I don't know that we necessarily have a choice because of some of the aging equipment that we have. And also not wanting to have the board make decisions, or not make decisions, but having us live with the reality of living with aging equipment. It will continue to fail. It will continue to interrupt education. And we're trying to move ahead of that and be forward thinking from that standpoint. So I'm coming from the standpoint, and the administration's coming from the standpoint that I don't know that we can kick this can any further down the road. And regardless of any expansion, anything else, we know that just replacing the mechanicals and the things we need to make sure that the building stays operational will cost us around $80 million for the high school and Pine Street together. And again, I guess I should go back. If we don't do the refinancing, we would have to make sure that our revenue increases by 2.5%. So once again, talking real estate taxes, should the state come through, I am not dependent on this at all. If they should come through with another $1.8 million in additional revenue like they did for the current year, we may not have to talk about taxes because our state revenue increased by that amount for the next year. Once again, I have no information and holding out no hope. Our projections are based on just getting the same amount of money that we had this year, next year.
If I can jump in real quick, I did have a conversation with some state representatives locally, and I'm not real sure that anybody was horribly optimistic that anything was going to come on time. But I did get the feeling that what we received in state funding last year would essentially be the new floor moving forward. So I guess it's the same formula we've always worked with. So I didn't get any sense that we were going to lose, but I did get a sense that I don't think the budget's going to come early. Not that that makes anybody at this table feel any better. Anything else, Mr. Martin?
Thank you.
Anybody? All right, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Guy, seconded by Mr. Laudermill to proceed with the bond refinance. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Mrs. Brain. Motion carries. Mr. Guy.
Motion to approve Saxton and Stump as the board counsel, the upcoming board refinancing at a total cost of $25,000.
Mr. Guy made a motion to approve Saxton and Stump as bond counsel for the upcoming bond refinance at a total cost of $25,000. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Lauder. Discussion on the matter.
Just like to note that this is normally we use bond counsel from Stockton Leader. That individual is not available. So that is the necessity to go back through here. The $25,000 noted is similar to what we've been charged through Stockton Leader for those services. That $25,000 is included in the savings and net in the numbers that you saw from PFM. So this has already been accounted for in those savings numbers, and the savings numbers that were noted would be, or the changes would be net of these numbers already.
Thank you, Mr. Frenson. Anybody else? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Mr. Guy.
Motion to approve the land use agreement for the landing of the military helicopter on the high school campus on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025.
Mr. Guy put forth a motion to approve the land use agreement for landing of a military helicopter on the high school campus on Tuesday, 22 April 2025. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Gilly. Any discussion on the matter?
Just to update the board, we had our last discussion, we were uncertain about this landing because it may affect our JV softball team. I actually don't have an update on the JV softball team, but our athletic director was able to identify that even if the game happens, the girls can warm up in a safe location away from where the copter is landing, have the copter land, and then they can move over and still have their game. So not sure if we'll have the JV game or not, but if we do, we're still able to safely have the helicopter land.
And just to be clear, this is a military appreciation for boys lacrosse.
That's correct.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Mr. Guy.
And we have a motion to approve the staffing and administration committee items as noted on the staffing and administrative consent agenda.
Mr. Guy made a motion to approve staffing and administration committee items as noted on the staffing and administration consent agenda. Is there a second? I'll second. By Mr. Lauder. Any conversation on the matter? Dr. Kepler?
Highlight item 2A, hiring a replacement. Excited to bring on Cody Barker as an IT technician. I know our tech team is thrilled with the interview process and with Cody Barker joining our team. A few other personnel items there for you. Some summer custodial help. Continuing to add some retirees. A retiree coming back to substitute. Additional subs, we have some spring coach volunteers for you this evening, some fall coach volunteers, and also tonight you would be approving the expulsion of 2 students, or approving the expulsion hearing waiver agreements that would be expulsions for 2 students.
Thank you, Dr. Kepler. Anybody else have anything they'd like to discuss on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, Josh. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Okay, Mr. President, I think staffing and administration.
Thank you. Communications, as always, will be on the district website. I will now seek a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
By Mr. God, do we have a second?
Yeah.
By Mrs. Brady. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Not this time, huh? Motion carries.
Recording
We are
stopped.
adjourned. Let's get into committee.
So first.
Oh, okay. Josh, you with us?
Yeah, I hit the wrong button. Sorry.
That's okay. You want to do buildings and grounds or want someone else to take it?
Probably somebody else to take it because I'm driving.
Okay, so Dave,
Please.
So, would you go for us?
Okay, buildings and grounds, I will final review of proposed 2025 capital project.
So this is just the last buildings and grounds meeting we reviewed these projects, but we did not have dollar figures assigned to all of them. So we do now at this point. We would propose that these would be approved for our capital projects the summer of 2025. I say summer, but as soon as we receive approval, we'll get started working on them as appropriate with scheduling and building use and those types of things. So just a reminder of the items there, resurfacing of the bus loop at Forge Elementary. That's an item that has been needed for quite a while. We also had a small sinkhole last year in that bus loop. So that has been patched, but you can tell that it's been patched. And so this final process of resurfacing will make that uniform. Some sidewalk repair at the middle school, a school sign out at the North Side Elementary, dugout replacements. And this is a direct result of some of the information that we received last year from the softball program, asking for certain upgrades and things to be done to their field. We talked about at that time that the softball field is essentially in the 4B that is being discussed now. But there were some items like the dugout that probably were in the point of disarray where they needed to be addressed rather than waiting for that full project. So this project takes care of the dugouts and fencing, but once again does not address any other needs of the field at this current point in time. An outdoor learning space at Forge Elementary is converting an old I believe a kindergarten playground that is no longer used. It was a plan by the STEM teacher there to provide some outdoor learning space to make that space usable, which is not being used currently.
If I can jump in there, Mr. Prince, that is right off I'll say the south end of the building, kind of a dilapidated area of the playground. The fencing around it is in really poor shape. There is equipment there from more than 12, 13 years ago when kindergartners attended there that really should be removed. And the macadam is deteriorated. The intent is it'll remove that new macadam. And then Mr. France, our STEM teacher at the elementary, has already written multiple grants, getting support to put in some environmental-based educational opportunities for students within that new fenced-in macadam area.
Then the final item there is just flooring for our timeout rooms at both Pine Street and North Side. Making that more sanitary than actually the floors that are in this room is what we are proposing. As a floor can take a lot of punishment, a lot of issues that happen in those rooms. So just updating those in both of those elementary schools.
I think this is it shows just how much these few things cost and how much money we're dealing with, that you might not think a floor would be $7,000, but I think it really gives a perspective of where the money is going and how much, something that you'd think would be simple would be.
Thank you. And also to know that this list is probably a little smaller than in other years because we've kind of carved out the high school and Pine Street because of what we're looking at for those buildings to not piecemeal anything at this point. And so most of their needs would be waiting until those projects would occur.
So I just did a quick mental math. It looks like we're spending about 135,000, give or take a few dollars. It looks like last summer we spent 606,000. So we are spending significantly less this summer. So that's completely covered by the 250,000 we typically transfer into the capital projects fund. So if we have that 120 left, do we typically just leave that in that account? Is that how that works? And then if other capital projects come up, that's fine. That's fine. That's not really in your job description to be a mixer or sound mixer.
I thought before this.
So anyway, So does that then, we typically, this is a generic question, do we typically keep that then and just roll that into the next year's fund for capital projects?
That's a good question. Typically, we have way more needs, so we don't have money left over. At this point, I would just hold that out for any additional needs that may come up that may arise from an emergency standpoint. We can also go back to some of the buildings and make sure that everybody is getting what they needed. Made some requests. Been trying to do more and more of that during budget season to untrain some of the individuals here who've just been trained to not bring things up because it's been told no for so often. Trying during budget meetings, we have those conversations and ask them if there's things that they hadn't put in that they want to, and we can definitely go back and have that discussion there. But I think the other portion of that is those other two buildings. We also, can use some help as we go through with these other projects and the overages that we might have. We're still very early on in the process. That might be helpful for. But I think that's the initial thing that we'll do is go back, kind of go back through and see if there's anything that we missed or maybe put on another year that we could bring back.
Okay, and then the next thing.
I just want to ask a question real quick. I know, and I don't remember exactly how long ago, but there was some conversation about some updates to the play field baseball over at Northside. Was that ever actually addressed or?
So the field has not been addressed. What has been addressed though is backstop fencing has been replaced and updated so that is safe. The baseball field that has not.
Okay, but it was the backstop we were talking about. Was there any discussion on the at the dugouts, but the benches?
We had none there, and where I was coming from the backstop fencing is that I believe it was a safety issue. I don't believe the benches are created.
I don't remember the particulars of the conversation. Thank you.
There's always a need and a want to update all of our fields, but being an Lebanon County resident and having a son that plays baseball throughout the county, I can say firsthand that the fields that we provide for our teener associations, which more or less are what use the north side field and the middle school field, we are providing some of the better playing surfaces to our teeners than others in Lebanon County.
Thank you, Mr. Prince. Thank you.
Anything else on that? Then the next thing is the construction update.
Construction update, did start knocking walls down. All the furniture was moved out. 2 weeks ago, I think it was out, to the trailers and moved it out. Construction guys started, sprinklers were disconnected, fire system were disconnected in that area. And I would say about half the walls are down. So it's moving along really well. They're starting to pull down HVAC equipment, ductwork, VAV systems are pulling them down. The air handler on the roof has been shut down now, and the power has been cut to it. That won't be removed until once they want to bring in a crane one time. It's not all and put it all at the same thing. It's costly thing to bring a crane in. Once all the walls are down and the demo guys are out of there, walls will start going up, HVAC systems will start going in. I'm pushing them pretty hard. I would like to see that area not completed, but fairly well along its way by the end of it. We should be doing carbon if things go well. The big kicker is now HVAC system. They were ordered, I guess, but when will they come in? We're not sure. But it still gives us time over the summer getting there.
Any other questions? And public comment. Anybody have any comments? Mr. Clooney?
Yeah, we have 2 questions. Concerning the north side school sign, could you elaborate on
features of this sign? Is it a new one? Is it a repair of an existing one? I know that I don't know, but this, that seems like a change for a sign. I just don't know what features it brings to work that kind of place. And the second question is in regards to the 2 timeout rooms. I was just wondering the room size for each of those rooms to warrant $7,000 per room. Those are the 2 questions.
Happy to answer those for you, Mr. Clee. The north side sign would be a new sign resurrected there. It takes electricity. So part of that cost is trenching under the bus loop out to the front lawn where there would be a lighted sign. The north side is one of 2 buildings that doesn't have a sign. Pine Street Elementary was just replaced because there was some damage to it, or it was aged. We are trying to address and bring the north side as an equivalent to our other elementary schools. So some of that cost is that trenching electricity. Timeout room size, 10 by 10, relatively maybe a little smaller than that. One of the challenges is it's not your typical VCT tile floor, because that's where we have some issues. It's the poured floor, what you see here, which is, it does come at a higher cost, but it's durable. Liquids don't get under it, things of that nature. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh.
Yeah, all right. What's up, man? Oh, here, it's going down. Finance, yeah. All right, Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vogel. First item on the agenda is the 25-26 department budget presentation. Here's technology. Thank you very much. Christy Garl, our IT supervisor, is here with me tonight. She's going to talk about some other things as well. I just wanted to go overall for some of our goals, and then some of the specifics of the tech budget. We're always looking for ways to maximize our financial investment, equity and resources. You're going to see that a little bit tonight. Our infrastructure support, you'll see some of that tonight as well, along with instructional technology and then cybersecurity. So right now, our staff, we have to give our teachers, administrators, iPads, a pencil, iPad stand, and then a laptop. The laptop and the iPads are on a lease. Our aides right now have an iPad or laptop depending on assignment. And our secretaries right now have laptops that were previously used at the end of a lease. We're getting to the point where years ago, a computer could go, 8-10 years. That was a benefit of the max. That's no longer the case. And our secretaries are some of our heavier users of the computer. So we're looking to actually put them on a lease because we're just not able to give them a 5-year-old laptop. It's causing too many problems. It's really not equitable. Our students are on iPads. Our elementary right now are on an iPad 8, middle school on an iPad 9, and then outright purchase of cases. Then our high school are on a 13-inch MacBook Air that's worked out really well. Cougar Academy and special ed is going to be a little different depending on the need. I know that's a little small, and some of this I provided in the other the infrastructure presentation. Again, a lot of our work is break and fix, but that's not all we do. We do a lot of staff work, student work. We run help desk all day long. We are mainly a Mac environment, but we do run Windows computers in some places. We also manage the cameras, the phone system, the copiers, printers, and lots of other things. Usually if it gets plugged in, people think that we manage it. So we try at some point. Lots of equipment. This one supported staff and students. Online testing is becoming a very big deal. All PSSAs are online, Keystone exams, AP exams. I think we have one day in May where we've got to run PSSAs in 5 buildings, AP exam in another building, maybe off-site, and then Keystones are starting. So we're actually, with a small department, we're kind of running out of bodies. So that just to be able to run that can be challenging, but we make it. So the internship program, we have one intern this semester. Next year, I'm looking at right now an intern most semesters, and then we have a couple other students interested. They go through an application process. It's a really good experience with for them. Our department does comprise IT, slide, and instructional technology. We work with a lot of vendors, so kind of looking at the best prices, we put items out to bid. So we're making sure we're getting the best product and the best prices we can, but we are also tied in with the IU13 consortium. So if we're looking at a new project, the first thing I'm doing is going to the IU, saying, is there consortium pricing? And then looking at what other districts are using. Anytime we look at something new, we know exactly who's using what, the price they're paying, the vendor they're going with, and any recommendations. So we do work very closely within IU13 and also somewhat within IU15. Sorry. So our fee update, and this is just an update from last year. Those were our current fees. We went with a higher fee at the high school, the 250, 300. A couple years ago, that's worked out really well. Our middle school fees are at 40, 80, 120, and that's actually cut down on a good number of breaks. We are proposing to go up with our K-5 to match the middle school. Right now, it's at 20, 40, 60. You can't replace the screen for 20, as we know, but we're at 40, 80, 120. We are keeping K through 2 iPads in school. They're housed in the classroom. They stay in a cart. They charge overnight. It's really cut down on breaks, which has been really nice. In addition, the new cases that we put on the middle school iPads are those OtterBox style. Those have really cut down on breaks. I'd like to get them also for elementary. So moving away from the folios, I don't love the folios. The screen is exposed, and the folios are tending to break off. Well, we keep them for teachers, but we're going to move to the OtterBox style, cutting down on breaks for 3, 4, 5. So we're seeing a decrease in repair at the middle school. I think we'll see it at elementary. High school repairs, there's an increase in the repair budget for high school. It's just the price that's becoming more expensive of the repairs that we're doing. To fix an iPad, to fix a laptop is a minimum of $250 if we're looking at a screen. Most of them are cracked screens or they're picking them up by their screens. So we are doing the repairs in-house. And we are, definitely losing money on some of those repairs. It's just the price is going up of the parts that we need, and we do get the best price possible. A major infrastructure project that we're going to do this year is switches. I'm gonna let Christy talk about that. That's kind of in her domain.
Yeah, so another switch is what gives my network to various partner buildings. So our wireless access points, desk phones, everything that plugs into these. The ones that we have in place right now were bought in the 2014, 2015 school year. So they're about 10 years old. Equipment like this has 3 stages of its life cycle. There's end of sale, end of life, and end of support. So end of sale is what it sounds like. That's when they stop selling it. End of life is when they stop doing software updates. So no more bug fixes, no more security updates, things like that. End of support is when they basically completely wash the hands of the product. Doesn't want to talk to you about it anymore. So the switches that we're running right now, they went into sale in February of 2022. Ruckus did kind of a different scenario here because of COVID and chip shortages, where they did a little bit of an accelerated timeline, although 10 years is a pretty standard amount of time to keep putting around. They stopped their bug fixes in 2023. Then they stopped it just happened. All of their and updates just this February. So end of support will end 2027. I'll be honest, we don't really call that over a lot of support. That's more, oh, I can't get this working, can you help me? We've called them in the past 10 years again times for that type of thing. Mostly what we need are the firmware updates, bug fixes, updates. So since these are beyond that date, that's where we're looking at. It's time to replace them. Because they're end of sale and end of life, that puts us in an interesting situation where if we could have a piece of hardware fail, say a power supply goes out on one of them, that switch is now dead. We throw it away. So getting ahead of those starting to die is really what we want to do so that we don't find ourselves in a really bad situation. When these die, it takes out a whole portion of the building. So this building, for example, we have 2 closets with switches. There's one down here by the gym and one actually right back here by the loading dock. Should, say, the switches up by the gym die, that would take out the entire 2nd floor and back part of the building as far as Wi-Fi, desk phones, printers, copiers, TVs, all of the things. So these are very, very important devices to have. They do come with a large price tag, but these have lasted 15 years. Our batch before them lasted, or I'm sorry, so not 15, 10 years. Our ones before that lasted about 11. So we are on track in a normal lifespan for not replacing them sooner than 30 days.
We do go through the E-rate process for as much as possible. This is a perfect example. E-rate is the government program that will give us a 50% discount basically on what we purchase, as long as it falls under certain categories, which is are eligible because our infrastructure is considered critical infrastructure. So we did the mini bid process, put out an RFP, received 5 bids. We're going through the bid evaluation, and then we'll do the purchase and we'll look at your implementation over the summer. Okay, on to the budget. This is the fun stuff. Well, I find it really fun. So these are most of the budget categories fall within a normal range. Obviously, there's some items that are increased, and part of that is just due to increasing prices. My computer and iPad, even though we're hitting a new lease, which I'll explain in a second, just taking the budget and trying to align it a little bit better. So making sure that the lease category is just lease and it's not purchase. So that's why you see a decrease in percent. Overall, it changed a little bit, but we're just putting them in different categories. When you're looking at a lease, not everything is actually, we say lease, but cases are a purchase. It's a one-time purchase. Adapters are purchased, power cords are purchased, except for additional ones. Our repairs and maintenance is really just an increase in the cost of repairs and supplies. Looking at what we're spending per year and what it's costing to fix. Supplies and equipment, obviously that's a huge change because we move different items in there. We are looking, this is our biggest lease, it's K-5, so you're looking at 6th grade levels as well as teachers. So we're doing teacher cases, student cases, Apple Pencils changed a little bit, so it's a bigger line item. Administrative software is one item that's been creeping up a little bit. And Mike and I were reviewing our budget and nothing really jumps out as a huge increase because it's all things that are just coming in over index. We do a lot on here that's IU13 consortium contracts. For example, our Microsoft licenses per district. We've added staff, increased students, like Microsoft has gone up. There's a support contract that we have to buy into. That's going to be another couple $1,000s. This was just finalized late May last year. So in my budget from last year, I had an older number because we didn't have a newer price. And the number this year is an accurate price of what that contract is. That's something we can't control. And there's multiple things in that software category that is just, here's what it is. We're not able to negotiate securely, our internet filtering, Palo Alto, etc. Travel and staff development, just an increase in some of those, kind of getting back to that pre-COVID and more cybersecurity items are being offered. Professional services increased. Part of that is the addition of a phone contract. When we went to our new phone system, the first 2 years were free. So we had a phone contract with our old system. Then with our new system, the first 2 years we had 0 support. So now we're back to having a support contract. So it just looks like a bigger increase, but that will stay. And then communications covers cell phone reimbursements. All communication systems are fiber, etc. That's just a little bit of a higher price. So next slide. Going through some of the specifics. So again, and we're also looking at our website, which I'll talk about in a second. Okay, can you go one more? So our new Apple lease, and this had to be redone actually a couple days ago because I was set on the iPad 10s and iPad 11s came out last Tuesday. So working with our Apple rep, with those, we are gonna do the iPad 11s. We did get them the exact same price as the iPad 10s, which is fantastic. It's a newer model. Elementary is our longer lease. It's 4 years instead of 3. They're not as hard on the devices as middle school students. And these have double the amount of storage, which we definitely need, especially for some of the online testing. And the different programs that students are using, they're filling up their storage. So by having double storage at the same price, it makes sense to go with the newer model. So K to 5 students, teachers, we will take the old iPad 8s in June with our summer help. We wipe them and then we resell them to Second Life Mac and we do receive money for those. We're purchasing Apple Pencils for teachers. The old pencils that still work, and that's a big one there, will be given to aides with an iPad 9. Our aides currently have an iPad 6, and those are soon end of life. So again, we'll sell those back, but we're looking to do a refresh of those. The headphone adapters, and this is Apple, they have changed the headphones that can go into the newer devices. So instead of purchasing all new headphones, we're purchasing headphone adapters per classroom. So students can still use the old ones that they get from Five Below, etc. And then the teachers can keep the adapters and those will plug into the iPad. Those are necessary. We need them for the online testing. Reading eggs, exact path require that we have headphones. So we're not asking parents to buy them. They're like $9 each. It's not a huge cost, but again, it's a lot of classrooms. I'm adding a lease of 35 MacBooks. Those will go to administrative assistants, professional staff, board, and other Macs aged out. So this will get rid of our Intel-based Macs that are from 2020 that have become kind of a security risk for us, where they're going to be end of life, not supported. They're causing a lot of problems. This replaces a purchase back from ESSER money in September 2020. So it wasn't a replacement of a lease, so it looks like a new lease, but we're actually replacing, as far as the other items on there, that other 200, we've absorbed Cougar Academy students in our high school lease with what we were able to do a couple of years ago and adding some devices. Our Cougar Academy numbers have dramatically decreased. So to have them on a separate lease doesn't make any sense. We like keeping them with the high school students, so it's one lease at the same time. A lot of our kids are high school students, so it just makes more sense to have them as part of that lease. So you are seeing a new lease, but it's actually replacing a purchase of quite a few laptops that we don't really need anymore. I will be bringing to you, if possible, a lease agreement so we can finalize it soon. We've done this the past couple of years, so I can order the devices so they're on hand by the time summer hits. We cannot order July 1 and have them ready to go for the next school year. That's just impossible with the lead time on equipment, especially now that we're ordering the iPad 11. I also want to say there's 35 MacBooks. The M4 MacBook just came out. I thought originally that it would be more money. Went back to Apple, and it's actually cheaper to buy the newer M4 than it is the M3. For some crazy reason, it's about $100 per device cheaper. So I just redid the documents today, working through those with them, and we are going to move forward with the M4. A little bit of a difference with those, but again, a better difference, but it's a cheaper device. So we're actually really happy about that, knowing that we have a high school lease coming up. So talking about our website right now, our current website, we use more web, and we talked about a little bit about this before. It's not an educational site. It is a site based out of Canada. They don't actually have to follow American law for any of this. It's very limited for us to modify and do anything with. If we request a change, a lot of time the answer is no. We don't pay a lot of money for this website. So it kind of makes sense that there's very little we can do. We've made the best of it. All teachers have sites. We've worked with teachers, so it's very similar from one teacher to the other. We are hosting a lot of our documents in Google Docs. When you see them on MoreWeb, it's actually just an embedded Google folder within there, which isn't the best solution, but it's what works. It's what we have. The problem with that is with accessibility ruling and what we're required to do, starting the process now, fully in place in April, and then on April 27th, as kind of that hard deadline, it cannot meet accessibility standards. putting it through the accessibility checker. I think I found something like 66 errors just on one page, everything from flashing text, I can't have an alt text, the banner, the heading, where things are located, screen reader, etc. So it's definitely causing us problems. It's full of PDFs, which we can't have because of screen readers. So the other piece of this is there are some security concerns. And I credit Christy with this. She's our cybersecurity person. She just did a cybersecurity scorecard. We've made efforts the past couple of years to get our systems kind of up to speed, moving to some different ones, which we've seen through the budget. We are at a 95% score, which is incredible. The website is our problem. So as soon as we move to a new website, then we're going to be good to go. So the next slide. So looking at new websites, again, the first selection process, looking at what IU13 uses, other surrounding districts from the last time we did this evaluation. Two main companies out there doing websites for the most part, Aptigee and Final Site. You may have heard of Blackboard and Schoolwires. Final Site has bought out those two companies. So most districts are using a version 1. I gave you a couple of examples. You're welcome to look on there. Final Site meets accessibility guidelines. It is template based. We would be working with them in 25-26 to build the site on the back end, still running our current website. So next year's budget has both websites in it with the goal of going live July 1, 2026. So kind of building it on the back end. It's a lot of work to build a website, especially in year 1. I want to make sure that it's done right. So looking at a needs assessment, putting out some surveys out there. What do you like about the site? What do you don't? I know internally what we need to do to meet accessibility guidelines. Some are going to be, here's what we need to do. But for example, every time you post a picture, it will ask you for alt text, which is an accessibility, something we have to do. It won't let you post without it. So it's going to be a lot easier. We can do banners on there. We can do an announcement if we have a security issue, if we have a 2-hour delay. Parents have to read that, click it to go onto the website. It's going to help with that communication. It integrates with our systems, etc. The needs assessment survey, then the content migration to move over what we want. And then to build, there's a lot of other things that we want to put on the site that we're not able to do. So that in and of itself is going to take quite a bit of work that would take place next year.
Quick question. So your live date is 7/1 of 26. When are we legally mandated to have it done?
April 27. That's going to give us a little bit of time. Best practice and within the IU, we are looking at having teachers. We are doing accessibility training this summer. So I'll be training all staff on accessibility, how to make sites compliant, because it's not only the website, it's every single teacher's site. Every Schoology page, every Google Classroom page, Class Dojo, social media, everything has to be changed. So we'll be starting that process on June 9th. As soon as school gets out, I think I have them that Monday. And then working through that process all next year and the following year. And then it becomes part of new teacher induction, that everybody will be trained on their sites as well. The good thing is we have a little bit of time next year. I don't want to be in this situation next year at the time where we have to build it. It would be impossible at that time. So there is quite a bit required of us. We have to show training, working with the IU, et cetera. So we're good with timing here. This would start probably July 1 with that process.
Okay.
Can I build on that a little bit? I'm assuming that any website that we build now is going to be from scratch. We're not able to transfer anything to another host, right? It sounds like it's a total.
Transfer something, and that's something that Final Site will do for us in year 1. There's a bigger price tag in year 1 for Final Site because some of it involves that content migration, working with the graphic designer. They don't actually do the building of the site. That's something that our staff has to do. They will help us with, what's on your site, what do you want to move? Let's look at some different sites, working with a graphic designer, putting some buttons on there if we want to do our registration page, etc. But as far as building and moving that content, a lot of it will be manual.
Now, do we own that content? Is there going to be any trouble moving it?
Yeah, a lot of it was moved from our old site to our new site. we're gonna look at it. There's some things that we're gonna be building from scratch, that just don't work in a new site. For example, our forums page and our annual notices. It's essentially, a lot of it is built in Google. We don't want things built in Google. So we'll be moving a lot of that around. So we'll be looking at, for example, the board page. It's mostly Google folders of where things are housed. We will go from scratch for some of that.
You had mentioned that this would include a rebuilding of every teacher's website. And they use a lot of apps and different things too. Is there any consideration to maybe limiting what they're able to use? Not to limit, I don't want to limit the creativity, but I would expect there's a lot of expense when everybody's on a different platform.
It's, when we say the teacher website on our main site, most of the teachers on their teacher web have just a short bio, a little bit about them, and then it's linked to their actual website. 6 through 12 all use a Schoology. So that's the only thing that they're using. They might have some other, like some Google Drive folders with Schoology assignments in there. 3 through 5 mostly uses Google Classroom, but 6 through 12, we do pay for Schoology. Within Schoology, there is an accessibility checker. There's a way to make things accessible. We paid as part of our science curriculum for Mystery Science, going through Discovery Ed. There's captions on all of it. It just has to be turned on and embedded and integrated. So it's not building, teachers are not building sites from scratch. The teacher website portion of having the teachers all linked on our site, that's something that we would do, but public can't get onto a Schoology page anywhere because it's closed. You need a username, password, parents can't get on, etc. So we're not looking at additional expenses for teachers. It's the same thing they've been using. It's a training component and the time to do it that's going to take a while.
Thank you.
Okay, so looking at our technology department restructure, part of our budget is, and this is the proposal. This isn't part of our budget, but it's part of the personnel budget. We have asked for an additional position, so I just kind of wanted to bring that to your attention as well tonight. Looking at our, and I linked the documents for you as far as the proposal from last time. Looking at our existing structure, we have 2 technicians. We run help desk at the middle school twice a day. We are running a high school help desk the entire day. And then elementary, it's kind of going out as needed. It's just a little different in how we do elementary. We are asking for 3 positions to be really restructured. My position title will change just to Director of Technology, but that's the only thing that would change. Christy right now is the IT supervisor. We're asking for a change for her to become Director of IT. She would be adding cybersecurity to her plate. So we're not asking for a cybersecurity person. We are actually getting that through Christy by kind of realigning responsibilities to some other people. So I wanted to make that clear. That's Christy's expertise. She designs all the IT infrastructure for the switches. She worked on what we need, the items, etc. Then I work on the E-rate, putting it out to bid, some of that type of stuff. Then our senior systems admin, that would be, we're looking to promote somebody into a senior systems admin position, adding on all the cameras. That position has some of the cameras right now. That's becoming camera maintenance and design, and all of that is becoming quite a task. Working with the phones, Christy does all the phones right now, so that would come off of her plate, and then maintaining the network. So as Christy's still designing the network with an additional person, now we have somebody else to help her maintain it. It is horrible practice to have one person in charge of everything. When Christy goes away, he knows that I get very, very nervous the entire time. Because again, Christy's the one who knows all the back end of that stuff. She's probably one of the most valuable people in the school district, just because of her knowledge, but having somebody else to work with her would be fantastic. And then the position we would be adding is our junior systems admin. There is a need identified through IU13. We're starting to see positions with an audio video person. I think you're seeing some of that here. Working audio video is a lot. And somebody with that knowledge and understanding, that person would do our systems and filtering monitoring that right now our senior systems admin person does. I work with them very closely on pulling reports, stuff for students, etc. And then still working help desk, but with some assistance and more at that higher level. So when our technicians can't fix something, it's the next level. Instead of bringing it to Christy, you know, bringing it up through kind of the chain a little bit to get some assistance, and then also a little bit of supervision on assigning tech tickets, on, you know, developing the help desk schedule, et cetera. With Christie's additional time, we're looking at, and this is things that we've just kind of had to pick up, and we're looking for additional products as well. Increased monitoring of district product that we already have. We already have these 2 products. There's a lot of notifications, a lot of things we can be doing, a national cybersecurity framework. There's best practices, tabletop exercises, training, professional development that we could be doing, monitoring the daily emails and threats that we get, and then the installation of equipment to better protect our staff and students.
So we went through, earlier presented to the board that the restructuring that KK is talking about in the new position were factored into the budget numbers you've already seen. We are now at a point where we're able to show you what those specific dollar figures are in looking at an HR joint and weight analysis under Angela's leadership. So you can see the specific dollar amount that is in the budget, just under 79,000. That is the restructuring of the 2 positions and the new position. Again, included in that January 9th number. Not included in that, and we talked about it in an earlier meeting when we broached the subject of accessibility, was the notion of a position to help us do that. We're very concerned that we don't have the personnel to manage that move to the website and the notion of accessibility. That is a significant task we must meet under the law. Angela did a thorough review of positions in this nature. And what we're recommending tonight with specifics is a communication and media coordinator position. Some districts have a position of this nature that's an administrative level position. We're not recommending that. We're recommending the position be in our confidential employee group. So it's not in a support staff union. It's not an administrator. It's kind of an in-between group where a lot of the district office personnel reside and aren't administrators. Person doing communications would have access to some of the most sensitive information in the district. So we want them in that confidential level group. What you see there are a wage range based on job description reviews, salary reviews, and within that band of a confidential level employee, not an administrator. So again, that range, the dollar figures there were not in that January 9th early number, but as we've learned more about the accessibility requirements that we'll be facing in 2027, prepping for those, we believe that we're going to need support in order to make that happen. So what we included for you as a board, others is January 9th documents we reviewed, but we put them there for your convenience. So you can see those, the 2 at the bottom. Also, you saw the tech budget in the slide, specific just the PDF of that is attached for you as well. And we did include proposed job description for that community relation or community. Oh. Community, no, that's not actual. It's what do we call it? Communications and media coordinator. Yes. So we'll get that title taken care of. But you can see the responsibilities that we were looking at in that job description. General media, communications, the entire website accessibility portion as well, probably be the most paramount item there. Public relations, et cetera. See, bachelor's degree preferred. And this is something that we asked the board to review. We don't need direction tonight. You have a lot more information as we go through April, May. As we draw close to the May preliminary budget, Mr. Frentz and his team are going to need direction from you as to what to include in the budget, if anything, on that position.
If I missed this, I apologize. Was there a job description done already for this?
That's what you're seeing there.
Specifically.
Yes. This is our proposed job description that HR put together after reviewing a multitude, seeking input from others. And this is the position that we are recommending to you.
That's why I apologize in advance if I missed it. Thank you.
These salary figures that are proposed, they're just salary, correct?
So again, we will revisit this on future agendas. Tonight was to present it to you, the work that we've been able to do to pull this together. And again, we have 2 months really to get direction from you on all of these positions. The other positions and restructure are in the budget. This position's not. All of that, we're going to need feedback. So we know what to bring you when we're bringing the proposed budget in there.
When do you anticipate, which next month, April, like when are you anticipating that we would need to have a decision for you?
So we'll have department presentations through the rest of this month. Beginning then of next month, we'll start to look at the full budget pulled together along with the revenues. So as Dr. Kepler noted, as early as April would be helpful. However, I believe the first meeting, our first board meeting in May, be approving our preliminary budget. So we obviously want a decision before that time.
On the new person, the net new person. So out of the 4,200 tickets, how many would you say Christie's in charge of? How many do you think she picked up? More than half, less than half?
Tough to say. A lot of what I'm doing isn't necessarily tickets per se. I'm struggling to try to pull even a rough number. I do get tickets assigned to me. For example, today, the district office dropped by. Care of that. A lot of what I'm doing is picking up on secretary protocols, trying my best to keep up with. Got our a lot of the network stuff and keeping things up and running and reviewing things. So like a lot of that doesn't actually take, a lot of it is a phone call or an email alert that I get on all of our servers, all of our infrastructure components, down ports, wire. I'm more like guys like that. A small part of what I am.
So essentially, the new ask is to take the frontline level one help desk, for lack of a better word, off of Christie, which seems like a good value for the promotion and increase that we want her working on the cybersecurity and these virtual server vulnerabilities, things like that. That's what we're paying for, really. We're not paying for somebody to say, hey, the projector, I think the bulb burned out in my projector.
And some of that, we do have another position between Christie and the technicians, and that would be Daryl Eisenhower.
Yep.
So some of that front line, he's now still staff facing, very much client facing. So we're looking for him to become more systems, sort of like some of the stuff that Christie does. She wouldn't be working with the phones. He would. So
right.
That's a phone issue that goes to Daryl. And then the technician would kind of jump in. And tickets are kind of finicky. I take a lot of tickets because some of them are, it just depends on what it is. We can have a ticket, a personnel ticket that goes through. It's one ticket, but it can hit 3 different people because we all have different pieces to that plan. So I would say it's probably coming more from Daryl's workload as opposed to yours with tickets.
Yeah, the tickets are more different.
Okay. All right. Seems like a good ask. follow-up from last year, that was something that we discussed, so I'm glad to see that kind of come through and round out the team there. Okay, that's all I have.
Additional questions for KK? The additional comments? Thank you. We appreciate you. Curriculum budget.
That would be me. My very last one. This evening, I'm presenting the curriculum budget. Key points for this year is going to be our categories of Cougar Academy, our grants, our curriculum software, and also our curriculum materials. My budget is a little less involved. A lot less involved, I should say. And the bottom line is my budget is 31.81% less than it was last year. And I will tell you the main reason is because the board was very gracious in the last 2 years, added the science resources from K-8, and we purchased them at the end of the 22-23 and then 23-24 or 23-24 school year, and then this year the 24-25 school year. So without having a major resource that we had to purchase, that is the main reason why my budget has decreased by so much. We also are continuing to see our Cougar Academy students decrease, so we decreased that budget by 10,000. The Title I, Title II, and Title III budget, that is money that comes in from the federal government and then we spend it and it goes out. So it's really no taxpayer-based thing at all. And what we're doing there is just shifting some of the Title I money to more Title II to provide more of that professional development. Our software money is decreasing because last year we purchased IXL for our middle school and high school teachers that teach math and ELA. And then on the year one of the 3-year contract, 50% of the cost had to be paid. So that was decreased this year. Also, we moved RAS kids that you'll see next week that used to be in the elementary budget. We moved that to my budget. And then again, the other services with the science, there's no big curriculum purchases this year. And moving forward with us working on a more curriculum cycle, which you'll hear more about in April, we will be able to kind of look forward as to what resources may or may not be needed. Mr. Guy.
Less students in Cougar Academy. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I would say it's a good thing if they're in our brick and mortar classes. They've left us to go to an outside side where it's not good.
Okay.
And those numbers in outside classes are holding relatively steady.
So actually, we have, not that we're losing students, they're going into the regular classroom thing.
We have less students overall this year than we did last year, as part of it. And students coming back in the brick and mortar, we have a slight handful of kids more, and that ebbs and flows every month on the number of students at an outside side versus here. That's monitored. Sue PNSL monitors that number, and then our Cougar Academy numbers. Every month we're getting an email update, so the number's relatively steady for outside siders.
Okay.
And I usually present that in April as well, to give you those numbers historically from the last couple of years. I'll also totally agree with Dr. Kessler that Cougar Academy, some of the discount that our teachers our students are taking more of our classes, which costs a lot less than paying K-12 for classes that we don't provide. Like we don't provide any sciences. If our students want to take science online, they take it through K-12 because we don't have courses that have the rigor and the competition of class and things like that. Like we just can't do it as a brick and mortar. this point. We could, but the amount it takes to pay that course would be not fiscally responsible for us. It's cheaper for us to pay K-12 for our students to take a course than it is to have our teachers create a course that would be robust in what we would need.
Thank you.
Additional questions?
Go ahead.
Right, so in your budget are a lot of the title funds, which are federal funds. Has there been, we are having these discussions with Item 13. Any concern that we won't be receiving those either at all or in a timely fashion, that this would then affect your budget? I mean, I did see your email too this morning from PDE, but we've been having these discussions for a while at Item 14. So trying to prepare for that, is that something that we need to talk about, have a discussion about?
Just yesterday, we were provided an update of superintendents in IU 13. And there is a belief that at this point, the funds that flow through formula-based measures, IDEA, Title I, which are two of our biggest streams of money from the federal government, we're hearing will be safe. If there's an area of concern, Title II, Title III are dollars we receive from the federal government, roughly a total of $50,000. Clearly, $50,000 we don't want to lose, but not a number that would break the bank. So at this point, those are some of the direct cash flows that we're hearing could be more at risk than others, but are large numbers of IDEA, which I know it's a 7-figure plus number. Title I, $360,000 number. Hearing those are safe. One of the things we don't have is the Commonwealth receives $800 million that flows through the state to public school districts in the Commonwealth. Items such as free reduced lunch costs, transportation subsidy. Those are things that they're very gray right now, and we don't know what any ramifications, if any, would come from those. Those would be big numbers and a challenge.
So I was hearing too that they might be safe, but they might be delayed, because then they might be run through different agencies, and the process of getting that accomplished could delay these funds. So do we have, and this is probably a conversation for another time, but I guess I want to make public aware of this and then kind of just put this out there for us to be thinking about, contingency plans for all of this. And it just made me think of it because the next budget has some of the federal funds flowing through hers. So just kind of want to put that out there.
To answer that question about if it is delayed, all districts probably about 5 or 6 years ago went through a very much delayed state budget process that didn't get accomplished. It is one of the main and good reasons to have a fund balance so that you have money to fall back on. So to the extent Dr. Kepler noted, IDEA and Title I, our fund balance is greater than those numbers. So what I would recommend doing is using our fund balance to use those dollars as they would until we can replenish that when the federal government would come back. Also want to note, our budget process is a very difficult process. There's many things that are unknown. And from a financial perspective, I really see it as a huge detriment that we're even having to have this discussion to determine if we're going to get the same amount of federal funds as we have the year before, and making a difficult process almost impossible. So I don't know that if the rug was yanked out from underneath us, the way current things are operating, I don't know that there is such a thing as a plan to go through. It's basically just hold on and make sure we can protect ourselves. But once again, being in the financially secure position we are in, I think we have the ability to do many more things than some of our other school districts that may not be.
And then I just want to clarify, Mrs. Martin, is this Title I, II, and III is all about the professional development. Federal fund wise for Title I, II, III, and IV, we get about $500,000. So about $470,000 of it is benefits and salary for staff members. So I just want to clear that that's in the personnel budget. So you're not seeing that in my budget right now. I didn't want you to think we just got, you know.
No, it just sparked the question because I saw the money's there. So I knew that there was, bulk of it is not in the budget, but there is some there. So that just sparked the question.
So all the, aside from the technology presentation tonight that had a head count asked, the rest of the presentations do not. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's one additional position in the budget numbers you saw for special ed. I don't know if that'll be talked about during their budget presentation or not, but that would be the only.
So last year we had talked about instructional coaches and some of the success we're seeing in testing scores. So, you know, one of the things we talked about was expanding upon the number of coaches. Is that something you reflected on this year, and we'll see an ask for that, or not?
It is not our intention to bring that forward to just out of the realization of revenues meeting expenditures. It's not a position, it's a want, not a need.
So then, on your way out the door, what would you say the right number of instructional coaches we should have is? Not that we can afford, but what we should have.
Yeah, I think we have
Elementary. I would love to see one at the middle school and the high school.
That's what I have down from last year. So two more instructional coaches, one at the middle school, one at the high school. You feel we're good at the elementary?
I do feel that the success and the continued improvement we've seen with our tier 1 instruction, which is what our coaches do mostly, is they make sure that 80% or more of our students are proficient or advanced with solid core everyday instruction from the regular ed teacher. So I feel comfortable that we are seeing and we continue to make changes in that. You know, as Dr. Kepler said, like, do we have wishes and wants? Yes, but we're also in a fiscally responsible mode. Realize that I feel at this point elementary has what they need.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. That's it.
Good. Any additional curriculum questions before we move on? All right. Thank you, Dr. Spagnuolo. That was beautiful. All right. Buildings and grounds.
The buildings and grounds budget. In reality, about 85% is what we have no control. It's either required, you know, all required by the state or required to keep the buildings running. With that said, right now with security, we are covering 8 buildings, covering all maintenance buildings, all the educational buildings, and we're also covering the turf building. Once we complete the stadium, we will also include the stadium building. Right now, we will not cover down here. Disposal wise, there was an increase in disposal. That was due to, of course, fuel costs. We have summer camp here, such as rec using our facility, basketball camps, all that. That all adds to the disposal. Normally, what we do over our summer for disposal is we put our trash removal on one-call basis. We do not run it like it is during the school year, trying to save money over. And that's how we're able to save some money. But by adding other uses in the district, you know, the turf field getting used and stuff, it does cause more calls to get out. Snow and lawn care, a lot of there's a slight increase, but a lot of that has to do with the playground material. Also, we were asked to make sure we keep the weeds down along the curbs and sidewalk grooves. We do have that contracted with an outside contractor to do that, just because it's on public roadways and stuff like that. It's a very it's seen by the public a lot, and we do not want our people out there doing it. So there was some increase there. Utilities, of course, gas, electric. We're coming off of some, we had some contracts, or some 4 or 5 year contracts we're coming off where we were reaping the benefits. Now we're coming off of them, and now we're gonna get hammered, just because whenever you're sitting at 5-6 cents per kilowatt and we're going up to 10, you're in trouble. You know, but we gotta remember that we did reap the benefits. Right. Repairs, maintenance, and preventative maintenance, that is the one control we have. We are seeing increases due to just the supplies. I mean, the equipment, faucets, toilets, everything we need. Also the cost of parts. We have a lot of aging mechanical equipment, and get that, you know, our guys are searching all over the internet and stuff to try to find motors, compressors, stuff like that. Sometimes you are paying more than what they're worth, because somebody out there knows that you can no longer get that compressor. Supplies and equipment, we're reflecting an increase there also. Supplies and equipment, supplies, of course, are going up. Our buildings are used more. I think it used more. Our custodial supplies also get used more. And then rental equipment, seeing that going up. Things that we are renting, we do not rent in law. We rent the 2 trailers out there from the Ivy stock at the high school. Rent a CO2 tank for the pool. And then we rent these sea cans and storage cans that are out on the baseball field right now that are being stored in the construction stuff. So there's not a lot of rental we do. But that is what the increase is. We will be paying for them on a monthly basis until project's done. And then training and dues, see it increasing that. Part of it is so that I have a new assistant. She has the opportunity to go to classes and she wants to pick up stuff. If she wants to use that to learn new things about custodial cleaning in that. Also for myself, I'll keep up with it. It's changed very quickly in our end of the field. And it's always nice to be able to get to these classes and that and learn and be able to bring it back to the staff and help them. And then insurance, insurance. That's basically coming off of what our vendor that we use, what they're projecting our insurance to be. So that rate is given to us basically based on what they're giving Mr. Crow.
And just a note for insurance, this is our liability, fire protection, those types of insurances. A lot of the reason for them going up is our insurance is full replacement. So it doesn't give us whatever we bought the item as, it provides us whatever the item costs to replace at the time it was damaged. Prices for everything continue to go up. And that is causing that pressure on us as well. So in past years where an increase in the items or the total cost of things that we're covering may have been a 4 or 5% increase, now we're seeing 10 to 12% increases. That's not.
Questions for Keith? Very good, thank you. Support services budget.
The next two I'm responsible for. Support services, the large dollar figures in here. This is keeping a lot of what's in here is tuition that we pay to outside sources, our cyber school, our CTC, homebound. So starting with the CTC and cyber schools. Cyber school numbers, our population has been fairly stagnant since COVID. We had quite a spike in 21 and 22 right after that. The numbers settled down, but appear to the last couple of years kind of level out, just a little over 100 students, I believe, between regular education and special education for those services. Projecting a small increase or about a 5% increase in the CTC budget. The number that is included in there not only accounts for all the tuition that we have to pay for the students, but we also have debt that is, we have to take portions of the CTC's debt that is split up all between those school districts. Our portion of that is also reflected in these numbers. CTC, this number may change as they continue to come up on the finalization of their budget. And so that number may increase or decrease as we get those real figures back from them. I don't anticipate it being anything drastic, but once again, we'll update that information based on what is there. Going down to the next line item, alternative ed and homebound. These would be students. Alternative ed are usually students that are placed by a court system in some sort of school. If that student originally lived within our school district and is placed somewhere by the court, we are responsible to pay the cost of the education for that. So that's reflected through here. And also then homebound students that may experience medical issues during the year that do not allow them to come into school, but they still can receive education. There are certain circumstances where we'll provide that there. This homebound also falls into some of the like Phil Haven placements. A student in Phil Haven may receive homebound services, and that's where that cost will be reflected. Moving on down to board services, this would be the district audit, including PSBA services and our insurance. You'll see an increase there. Some of that due to advertising costs. Due to our projects, necessary things that are going on, we are definitely needing to advertise more in the paper than we have in the past 2 to 3 years. So I noted on there, majority of that increase, that shouldn't be that way. About $3,000 of that 15 is advertising costs, and the rest would be the insurance that's included in this part of the budget, which would be the board liability insurance and the umbrella coverage that is specific to the school board. And once again, those are just increased, not necessarily based on our usage, but things that are seen throughout the Commonwealth, specifically with school boards. And unfortunately, the liability isn't necessarily just focused on what we do here, but what could happen, what is happening, unfortunately, in other school districts. Tax collection is down a bit. Part of that is our increase. Our decrease continues with the collections for our EIT, which is done in the county system. That contract was just renegotiated, and they continue to drop the fee for that. Part of that is because earned income tax continues to grow, so it works out for them, but also a little bit of a savings for us. You can see a small savings for legal services. That's really just a minimal from an adjustment standpoint. That's to note that I believe we'll be under the $90,000 budget number this current year based on where we're at in projections. So bringing that number back a little bit for next year, as we have no real big things in process or any changes that change the legal services that we normally use. Office of the Superintendent. This is an increase as we try to do things to ensure staff morale. Certain things, we have meals at the beginning of the year. Those costs continue to increase, but also the number of items that we provide has increased a bit. The small things that we can actually do for appreciation for our employees is kind of reflected there. The business office, a lot of the things in here, about $50,000 of that $129,000 budget is our CSIU software that provides for the fund accounting that we use to provide you with reports. It also provides for the payroll and personnel information that Mrs. Hepner oversees the process that as well. Crossing guards, this is a significant increase. We pay our municipalities for our crossing guards, and it's actually a requirement. We are not able to employ someone that is going to stop traffic or do those types of things. It has to be done through the municipality. More and more, due to having a hard time finding individuals to do those things, I think they are now all outsourced from that standpoint, and costs have increased due to that factor. However, we're having more consistency in having those coverages. As I know in the last couple of years, once again, with the municipalities having trouble finding people, there's been times where crossing guards weren't available to us. IU services, this is just the minimal amount, actually the guaranteed amount that we have to pay for the IU operating budget. This does not reflect special education services or anything to that extent. Community service, this is a donation that this district has done to the Palmyra Public Library for a long period of time. That's just recommended to be consistent there. The debt service, that is our payment for all of our debt. As you can see, proposing or noting a change or a reduction there of about $500,000. That was an anticipation of the refinancing. So while it does not have an overall net savings for the life of the refinancing, there will be a reduction in our debt service payment for next fiscal year as a result of it. So that's why that is being shown that way. And then finally, our capital reserves payment, our capital reserves transfer, of $250,000 recommended from there. Would be a line item that we'd like to increase, but as we've talked here before, we really proposing or pulling our budgets together based on the needs that we have, not necessarily the wants of things that make things maybe a little bit. Questions? Yes, you got one.
Comment. Yeah. Earlier in the meeting, you talked about staff being trained not to bring up budgetary items. I think I missed that memo, so I'll bring something up here, one way or the other. I think everybody knows that I'm the representative of the board, library, and I've been jotting some things down here. First of all, we're very thankful for the $2,000 that we have received every year. It stays in the community. It benefits the kids, especially the summer program. And we know the problem during the summer as far as the kids during the school year are programmed to do the reading and do the math. Every once in a while, there's a regression in the summer. And one of the things the library has tried to do over the years is step in there and help this out. The little explorers, the reading programs, the tutors for math and reading. This is an ongoing program, very much so, very important. And what I would like to propose is, I've been on the board for 10 years. I've been the library rep for 10 years. It's been $2,000 every year. And if you just take a look at inflation or the impact of what $2,000 did 10 years ago, and I don't know how many years before that it was $10,000. I say 2,000. That was wishful thinking. $2,000, and what it is right now. And like everything else, all money that the library gets is spent on the kids, spent on the program. So it stays within the community. We talked about this various times, and I would like to propose that we increase that stipend from $2,000 to $3,000. We went over board policies a couple of years ago, and there was a question, could the school actually be making those contributions? And in the board policies that were passed, the school boards are actually being encouraged to work with the libraries and make those kinds of contributions, because it's the kids in the community. benefit. So, again, my proposal is take it from 2,000 to 3,000. And again, if you're taking a look at all the numbers, these numbers are huge compared to what we're doing as far as the library system. But we'll be thankful whatever you give us. And if you want to give us 5,000, I'd really be thankful. But we settle for 3. Thank you.
Additional comments? Support services budget?
How many students do we have in outside cyber charter? Just ballpark, right? It fluctuates, but what's
I would say about 110 kids.
I have a breakdown. Outside side of the mark was 104 regular students and 34 special eds. So it's taken the first of every month.
so 144 total? And our 130. And our special ed tuition rate is considerably more than the regular rate.
Twice. It's a little less than that because of the adjustment they made.
Right. That seems like a large budget item. And I think it's important for people to understand that those are your local tax dollars leaving the district to fund cyber charters. So
If you haven't seen the recent Auditor General's report, it's worth taking a look at.
yeah, they found a number of deficiencies in how they spend our tax dollars unaccounted for. There is no school board at the Commonwealth Cyber Charter Academy. It's hard to plead your case to them. So certainly that is a lot of dollars flowing out of this district that are unaccounted for by the public or this board. But thanks.
The last one we have for today is transportation. Fairly straightforward budget. We outsourced transportation in July of 2024. Approved a contract with Price Transportation. They bought out AP Bucks, so we've been going through that process with them. You can see the increase to transportation is above the contractor cost. And to be honest with you, a lot of this has been tough to budget coming out of COVID. Transportation from, I would say, 2021, 2020 through 2023 was a maze in terms of who could ride, who wasn't riding, how many buses we could have. When we entered the 22-23 school year, proposed or challenged with a significant reduction in the number of drivers that were available to us. So we reduced the number of buses because we had to, not because we wanted to. And so I think moving forward from 25-26, we're getting to that regular or back to pre-COVID transportation and how it's operating and making sure that we have enough drivers to fulfill all of our needs. But that is why our contracted cost is just a 3% increase, which you'll note in here, it's up to 7%. That is just taking advantage, not taking advantage, but adjusting for those things as we've seen this school year. We started this school year with the same number of buses, or the same number of buses that we normally did in the prior year. You're seeing more ridership, so buses were more full. We had to make the decision to add more buses so that we could deal with that situation. So again, that's being reflected in these costs, assuming we're going to need that expanded number of buses again in the future for next year. Conversely, you'll see special transportation. Christ has been able to provide some efficiencies in that process. So in the prior year, I think we had about 36 vans that we were running. We have now been able to pull that back to just a little over 25. And some of that is Christ's expertise and having put in other runs throughout the county that we're able to take advantage of that we just weren't able to with AP Bucks because they were only servicing our school district from there. Non-public transportation for the public, we are required by school code to transport students to non-public schools if that non-public school is within 10-mile radius of our school district. Commonwealth subsidy provides some reimbursement for that. But this is just noting those costs for those non-public students that are required to transfer. Radios and software costs stay flat. Last year, we moved to an upgraded version of a system called Bus Tracks. We are now looking at a different system that is actually used by Price. And we want to move to that system so that we can both see the same information, talk the same language, take, once again, some more benefits of having a more expanded company servicing. I don't anticipate there's going to be a software increase in those costs. We'll just have some more costs for our staff this current year as we transition to that new software, because recommendations are always when we transition software that first year, you're running both programs to make sure everything is operating properly and going from that standpoint. So that is the budget presentation for transportation.
And question, when it comes to the reduced van runs, so you're saying that was solely because of Chris's expertise, we're not transporting less children?
That is correct.
Okay, so still the same amount of kids, but they were able to reduce it by almost 9 vans.
Yeah, and some of that is a coordination of where students are placed at the current time, and so we have a better location there. But also looking at maybe using the same vehicle for a couple of runs where in the past Bucks would have provided different vehicles to make that occur.
Okay, I just wanted to be understanding that it wasn't a significant fewer number of children. It was simply because they were administratively able to remember. Okay, thank you.
I do have a question. I have made a proposal as far as the libraries and second board, is that?
Could you speak just a little louder? I'm sorry.
Okay, I had made the proposal about the library. I was just wondering where it goes from here. What procedures?
What the discussion of the board members to know whether or not don't necessarily, once again, as other things, wouldn't expect the answer today. Definitely as we start to go through the full budget process in April, have a note here to just seek clarification.
Okay, I just wondered when we get back to that to decide.
No. Let you know.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Mr. Friends. Public comment. Yes, sir? We'll go this way.
I don't want to have this whole podium set up and not use it. It'll be a waste. I feel like I'm probably going to be in the minority with this question, looking at all these MacBooks up here. And I'm going to go all the way to the beginning of the presentations to talk more towards the IT. There's a lot of focus on iPads, MacBooks. With the leases coming up, is there a process that the department goes to look at what the cost effectiveness for these and Macs or Surface Pros or I guess on-prem laptops instead?
We do. We reevaluate every piece of equipment we buy, whether it's Mac versus PC. We use Windows devices in our business office and places where we need them. When you start looking at the cost of a Surface or any device that you would be using for school, it becomes very similar to the cost of, or actually more expensive than the cost of an iPad. The MacBooks that we buy for students are actually education models, so they're not in the Apple Store. You won't find them. They're a cheaper model, it has less storage because students use mostly cloud-based storage, so we don't have to provide the storage of a consumer grade. In addition, we have been in Apple District for years, so a lot of our professional development, the instructional portion, teachers can monitor students through Apple Classroom, which is really handy when they are going out and about on websites or whatever. They can pull up they can screen all 25 students and what they're doing on all the screens, push out web links, they can push out an exam, so they're kind of blocking it down. So there's a lot more than just the device that goes into it. But yeah, that's something that we do evaluate constantly. We do use Windows devices in some classes. As part of the budget, we do have a replacement for PCs in our computer science or tech ed. We're never going to get rid of those based on what the needs of the curriculum would be. And we have PCs around the district to be able to accommodate those. So it really depends on the use, the training, and then kind of the intended output of what we want to do with them.
As a preferred software, so I would say.
Yeah, I mean, well, some of it for the AP computer science, we have to have PCs, based on what they're using in that class to be able to design, code, et cetera. In our tech ed, some of the machines, some of the software will only run on the PCs when we're looking at the plasma cutter, et cetera. So they're using the PCs in those classrooms.
And has there been any cost analysis? We looked at maybe some VMs instead, like virtual machines, software versus actual.
We do have some of that. Chris, if you want to talk about our VM.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, it's a question. So, and I don't want to take much of time, because I feel like these are kind of like, I can propose like official questions to the board to come to you, but part of my background is tech. And so we start talking about the use of software, preferred software, and I understand that Mac might be the one to go with it, but also virtual machines kind of cut down on the use of having to rely on the preferred software. And we have an opportunity to use more software through VMs than using actual physical machines. And so I was just wondering, in part of our process of looking at what we're going to spend on budget, do we take into consideration of what Microsoft offers, since I'm using Microsoft Enterprise, of using their VMs as well?
We actually, and as part of my software budget, very little is student software. We do have the Adobe Suite. We have some licenses that we're using for those students. Those are actually assigned per classroom. We do have some virtual machines as far as backups and servers. We are part of the IU13 Microsoft Consortium. So we are running Microsoft products on all of our devices. So our devices do have Word, Excel, all of those things that students are using. So most of the software you saw in the budget is more administrative type software.
Forgive me for interrupting because it's a wonderful discussion, but your time is running short. So I just wanted to encourage you, if you had specific questions, to maybe email those in, and
Yes.
if you had additional.
One final question, and then I'll give back the rest of my time. If I were to petition to the board for a use matrix of each machine that leaves the campus, would you provide that? So how many times students log on outside of being on Grab?
It's going to depend per student and per division. Our K through 2 students do not take devices home. So that's going to be, it's very different for a 6th grade student than a 12th grade student, and it might be even different depending on the classes.
But it would be available.
It would be available.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Did I see Mr. Sisley? Forgive me, I was just moving this way across the room.
Sure. It's a way.
Because of the American Library Association's apparently growing ideologically leftist, some would say flat out neo-Marxist orientation and agenda, does anyone here know if the local library at issue is actively affiliated with the American Library Association?
I do not know if they are associated with it. I know for a fact that there is no fear whatsoever about any Marxist or communist or left-wing affiliation. They're very, very conscious about things of that nature. So that's not fear.
They do a very good job. Thank you, Mr. Klee. Y'all?
Mr. Guy, it would be good if to know how many Palmyra students actually utilize the services over the summer. I think a number would help us decide.
On a day-to-day basis, it'd be hundreds. I mean, they have the reading programs, kids are going in and taking out the books. They have special presentations every week. Some of them are run out of the Brethren Church. So it's very actively involved. This is a big time situation. Probably the best in the county.
Isn't it?
They have information. It probably gets you information of how many books are checked out during the summertime. This is going back to when my kids were involved. This is 30, 40 years ago. And literally it was in the tens of thousands of books circulation during the summertime. I mean, this is one of the things they definitely try to do.
Carrie,
So
I
my-
might suggest, forgive me, I know there was a very good presentation that they had put together for the board at one point in time. If they still have it, I would suggest maybe that could be passed along to any community members who were interested. Anyway,
Yeah.
forgive me, go ahead, Mrs. Joe.
And mine wasn't the usage of the library, checking books now, that's a year-long thing. My understanding is this money was towards summer programs and extra things that we did. Because I remember years ago, when my kids were that little, they had little book programs and things. We'd go once a week and then, I thought that's what the money.
That's exactly what they're doing.
That's what I.
It's an ongoing, and again, they're also doing the specialized tutor service for the kids sign up for it, they go from there. Yeah, kids.
Our kids.
Yeah, nonstop. I mean, if you wanted a more complete listing, it would be on their web, or simply call the library in Chelsea. Would be more than happy to talk to you about that.
I just think that would help build the case there.
Right, yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mrs. Yule. Any additional comments? All right, that concludes finance.
I guess it's staffing and administration.
No, it definitely is.
Okay. Post middle school club.
Yes, this evening, our middle school, we have Mr. Cooper and Mr. Gees is interested in starting a volleyball club. Actually, it's coming from students. That they would meet once a week after school until 3:30 for any students interested in participating in volleyball. There would be a max of 50 members. And they would meet on Tuesdays after school, when the gym is available.
We have the solicitor engagement letter. Here's two options there.
So sharing with our board and community that our current council through Stock and Leader is undergoing a merger with Saxton and Stone. So before you tonight, the actual engagement letter states for the board to engage and transition to Saxton and Stone. I'll note that maintain the same council. The entire education law group from Stock and Leader is transitioning directly to Saxton and Stone. Larger firm. Brooke saying with us that we will have even greater access in a larger pool of council. So the actual engagement letter reads for this board to approve that transition to Saxton and Stone for the remainder of this fiscal year, effective April 1st, and provide you with the rates for next year. Typically, we would be renewing with Stock and Leader in June. The board would be making that decision in June for the following fiscal year. So I have it listed there for you as really two options. Do you want to do this in one motion? List the rates for April through June 30, the exact same rates we pay now, and also include in that motion to accept the engagement letter for the 25-26 fiscal year. There are slight increases to that rates at the attorney level. I will tell you that some of the other rates, there's some reduction in some paralegal fees. So in essence, really, it's three choices. Do you care to renew? Do you want to do a motion in an upcoming meeting, effective April through June? Or do you want to have one motion that allows you as a board to say, we'll move to Saxton and Stone for the remainder of this year and the next?
Well, it would be my opinion that we engage for this year and next. I mean, we're going to have the same board in place come June anyway, so I wouldn't foresee any differences between now and June. And I think it would make sense just to get this off our plate and make the extension. Personally, I have been, more than pleased with the services we've received and the professionalism and the knowledge and school law, particularly special ed, I think is bedding down with this. That would be my opinion.
So I have somewhat of a different opinion. Authenticity, transparency, honesty are very important to me. And I have felt that this year that approach has not been consistent with those values. There's not been the transparency to the community and to the board that I have desired. And I've seen that in your other clients with Gettysburg, Manhattan Township, some things that have appeared in the papers about the lack of transparency there in those districts. So I am not comfortable proceeding and voting yes on you, your firm as it currently stands. I mean, for example, with this intruder situation, did you know about that before it appeared in the paper?
It was not a situation I needed to consult with counsel. I did not talk.
So she did not talk to you at all?
No.
So you found out about it in the paper? Brooke, this is Sam. Did you find out about the intruder in the paper?
I read the article when it was sent to me,
Yeah, so when did you find out about it?
when it was sent to me by Dr.
So you found out about the intruder when you read it in the paper article that Dr. Kepler sent to you?
When Dr. Kepler called me before meetings ago.
Okay. So yeah, so I'm just not comfortable with the approach that you've taken with transparency and then the secret library thing that you've had this year as well with the same issue there. So those are my comments that I am not comfortable moving forward. I would prefer to table these motions, put out an RFP, and if you wanted to respond to that, that would obviously fine, but I would like to see what other options would be available for our district that might be more in line with the values I have.
I'm fine with going ahead with the 2-year plan. I think your services were wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with Sue and Mike. I'm comfortable moving forward with the proposal.
I'm gonna go with what Mike said. Just because may disagree sometimes with what you say doesn't make it wrong. Simply, we have a different point of view, and I think politics should not be involved in our legal discussion. I'm very happy with the professionalism. I'm very happy with the quality that we've gotten you. So, yeah, I'm all for it.
I would prefer to only appoint them April 1, 25 through June 30 of 25, and then continue this discussion.
I would say that I would be okay with tabling it. There have been some things just personally that I don't feel satisfied with, comfortable with. And Larry, I do not feel that this is a political thing at all. We are all entitled to our own opinions.
If this is just a discussion, right? We're not voting, so this would come.
Our intention is, will we have a motion at the next meeting, and what will that motion be?
And will that be a roll call or just a general?
Just a general vote, typically, where
Hiring them.
it's not necessarily need to be a roll call.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it would technically be considered an appointment. So you would need a majority of 5. And I would typically have that happen in a roll call under 5-5. Be really, really clear. It is an appointment of an appointee, technically.
Right. Thank you.
It's still code.
Okay.
And it's entering into not a contract.
Yeah, and my question would be, would the interest that we show tonight be enough to put it on the next agenda as a motion and then see where the vote takes us? Because to me, the interest seems to be there to extend. That doesn't mean it'll pass with the vote, but how do we move from this stage to the agenda
I would recommend that you have something on the agenda related to solicitor services because as of 4/1, I will be at another firm, so I will not be able to work for you. And you will not have a solicitor that's appointed because my firm will cease to exist. You will certainly be welcome and support any interview you want to do of us between now and then. Or moving forward, if the board decides that they want to go out for an RFP, I'd be happy to have you meet the whole team. But I would recommend you put something on the agenda because I don't want you to be without support. And if that's not my firm, then get somebody else's name on there so that you have support for one.
We could put, and just to address Ms. Martin's comments, we would not be able to turn around an RFP and select a new solicitor by April 1st. So I believe we would at least need to approve the short term because we would be without counsel. We were able to do that. There's no way that we can turn that around and provide anything follow useful to us.
And I think the question that I have is right now, it seems as though, and again, we're not polling or we're not taking any votes now. I want to be clear about that. But it seems the consensus of the members present would be to put the year and a couple of months option on the agenda for next meeting and then see where the vote takes us at that time.
We could also put both items on the agenda, having shorter one first. Hopefully having that approved, so we're assured council, and then having the other one to see if the individuals would like to extend.
I'm cool with that too. Somebody will have to help me muddle through that. When we get to it.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing Mr. Friend say is we could have a motion to appoint Saxton and Stump for April through June 30. Approved or not, have a second motion for the 25-26 school year and allow the board to vote.
Okay. I mean, that seems fair to me.
And again, it's not an intention to leave you all in the lurch or force a decision. This is when we could announce it. And ultimately, typically, it's not the kind of thing where it would work for you. It's a matter of I physically can't transfer your file to a new place ethically unless you consent to that and say that we're still engaged. This is a very unusual situation, but it is what has happened now.
It also happens to be one of the places where I struggle moving agenda items from committee onto the regular meeting agenda without having a vote, but knowing where the interest of the board is and what the proper motion will be. And I just want everybody to be clear and to understand, what I'm trying to accomplish and what we're trying to accomplish without breaking any rules. And the way I see it right now, and I would agree with Mr. Frantz that maybe both motions go on the agenda and just let the chips fall where they may. If that seems ethical. Okay. So we will see two motions. Okay.
So, and then we're going to go with after school vulnerability assessment.
So immediately following our last board meeting on the Friday, the day following, and Monday following, I reached out to 4 different vendors seeking proposals on vulnerability assessments of our buildings for after school hours. Individuals have asked me for time in order to submit those. So they're just coming in. I should have the rest, if not tomorrow, by early next week. And I'll have those for you at the March 27th board meeting.
Would that be a more appropriate time for me to comment then? I'll wait till we get the bids or whatever, and then I'll express my feelings on it.
But for tonight, I wanted you to see the 4 companies that we reached out to. We are members of the Lancaster Lebanon Safety Cohort. We use Rain Public Planning as a contractor to redo our emergency operations plan in the last 3 years. And Vulnerability Solutions Group has been a vendor of ours in the past that did some vulnerability assessments of our schools.
Anything else?
Anything on so Mike, what was your defer your comments on what was it? Some of the specifics of these needs?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get into the meat and potatoes of it, but I'm not sure that this is the proper time. So I'll just,
Okay, I was just trying to understand
Yeah.
what was the substance of your comments were that you were deferring. Because still, I still have a concern about Dr. Kepler's failure to tell us about this, that prompted this whole thing. We haven't really fleshed that out. That's still a concern of mine, that this isn't something that will happen again. That we're not told about something for 5 weeks and then we have to address it this much later. So that's still outstanding to me. I still am concerned that I'm not able to fully discharge my duties as an elected board member if I'm not told about everything that's going on. So I don't want this just to go away and just be swept under the rug and then not fully fleshed out as to why this happened and why we weren't told. So I don't know when that's an appropriate time to talk about. That's why I asked you what comments you were deferring as the president. Defer to when you think that's best to talk about. But I don't want this to be something else that we sweep away and not address. Because for me to be able to do my job appropriately and everyone on this board, we need to have all information. We need to be assured that we aren't going to wake up tomorrow and read about something else in the newspaper. And for us not to fully address that, I think that's a dereliction of our duty. So defer to you as to when you think it's best to discuss about that. But I don't want this to be something else that is not fully addressed and going forward, assurance that this isn't going to happen.
no, and I totally understand your concerns, and the way I was looking at this, the item on the agenda here for committee was simply bids for the vulnerability assessments. And my opinion on that is that it's money that we don't need to spend. And I could talk for an hour as to why. And I'll just, suffice it to say that we cannot prepare, plan, or prevent every possibility. And we're going to pay somebody $10,000 to come in and tell us the same exact thing. Even if we had security guards posted at the doors, none of them would have known that this fellow was on the lam, and he would have been admitted as a spectator with no issues. So it's after school events are a nationwide problem, security wise, for every school district in the country. And I just don't feel as though we need to spend money. And I did find some organizations out there that can provide us some training on the matter so we can better educate ourselves. Because while it's a problem that we cannot completely solve or ever stop, I'm certain that there's things we can do to mitigate in the future. Now, I'm also separating these two. These are two totally separate issues.
Yes, completely different.
Right. I don't know when the appropriate time to address the other one is, or how we talk about it, or when. I would think an executive session, probably because there's personnel issues involved and security issues involved. But I would have to ask, because I don't want to do anything inappropriate now, nor do I want to hide anything or save it for later. I think everybody at this point is well versed in exactly what happened.
Again, the question isn't what happened. I think we all can agree on what happened.
Right.
Because it was all undisputed facts according to the police report.
It's when we were made aware.
We're not told.
Right.
And that can't happen again.
No.
And so I want to make sure we as a board going forward do everything we can to make sure that we are all fully informed, each nine of us.
And I agree. And again, in my view, they're two separate issues. The security thing and the assessments and paying somebody to tell us there's nothing we can do to completely stop it versus the flow of information, to me, are two separate issues. I would have to look into when the appropriate time to have that conversation is, because I can't honestly tell you right now.
So I do have some assurance from you that we will have an appropriate time to talk about that.
Yes. Okay. And I think the conversation needs to be had because we're all going to be upset and suffer from the anxiety, because I know I've been and I know you've been, until we do flesh it out. However, the reason I said I'm going to hold my comments is because this specific item was simply bids for a vulnerability assessment.
Right.
And when we get the bids, then I'm just going to repeat what I said now. I don't want to spend the money on it because I don't think we'll get anything of value in return.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, safety, security, survey.
So we did a survey of our staff. We have, I want to say, close to 80 responses to date. We have our survey out to our families via our alert system. I think as of this afternoon, we had roughly 200 responses. So we have that active and open for another week. We'll have that prepared with data to share with the board at the March 27th committee meeting.
Okay, back to school night, August 25.
This is more of an announcement. At our last board meeting, the board approved our 2025-2026 calendar. It's not necessarily part of the approval, but for convenience sake, we list back to school nights. I didn't want to assume anything. We traditionally alter that back to school night at the elementary. If it's Wednesday night one year, it's Thursday night the next, and vice versa for secondary. I didn't take into account that we have board meetings on Thursday nights now in elementary school. So we can't have back to school night on a Thursday night. So I'll be sending out a communication to our staff and our community that we're just switching those back to school nights. That August 20th will be the elementary night on the Wednesday night, and the secondary will occur on the 21st on Thursday night.
Yeah. Public comment. Wait.
Hopefully you can hear me. I just want to thank those of you who chose to use the microphones tonight. It makes attending the meeting and understanding what's going on a lot easier. And I sit in the front row. That's one of the reasons I don't sit back there. I just wish that all of you would have chosen to use the microphone.
I don't think we had enough to go around, but I appreciate the comments and we'll try to do better.
Okay. Anybody else in that section?
I did concerning the solicitor engagement letter issued. And were either of the solicitor entities touched upon here today associated with the West Shore School District during the time a few years ago it began to implement a particular SEL curriculum and was then successfully sued about one or more aspects of it all? I would assume that you all were notified of that lawsuit that was wrapped up just a couple of years ago. So was the solicitor for the West Shore School District, was that either of the solicitors that is listed here? You don't know? My recommendation would be to research it and find out. It may be helpful to.
I did research. It was Stockton Leader, it was West Shore's council, and they were fired last year.
You may want to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Mr. President, do you want to make the announcement of executive session?
Certainly. The board will meet in executive session immediately following tonight's meeting for updates and discussion regarding a confidential personnel matter, for student matters confidential under FERPA, and to consult with the solicitor. Thank you, everybody.